You know, would you say relationship building or networking is still the same as you do it online versus offline? The business owners, right? Now you can't do your business development the way you've done before. I'm talking about the restaurants, right? Like I know your customers always used to walk into the door. Now you have to come and deliver them in a different way. Hey, how is everyone? Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you again for joining our show. Really excited to have you. Oh, can we just take a moment to, I put a note here, pause. I think it's so important. It's Monday. It's been, I think last week was quite a week for many of us. I know some of our friends around the world have already been seeing some of the changes, but I think last week in particular was intense for all of us. And so, I asked for all of us to just take a moment. If we need to pause and step back, please do make space for that. It's so incredibly important. And so let's now dive into for today's conversation. Today, I wanted to talk about, as we're working more online and connecting and collaborating, how do we build trust? Would it be the same? And I think this is a question that we should think more deeply about as we connect, collaborate, and work with a lot of different stakeholders online, because there is so much room for miscommunication. I recently put an ask out there for friends, hey, tell me some phrases that make you upset or cringe, and that was initially for a different purpose, but I quickly came about remembering, wow, there's so much room for miscommunication because we often go about saying things out of habit, out of routine, that we forget that how unintentionally we might be hurting other people and how they feel differently. And I think now, while we think about how is networking online and offline different and build relationships differently, it's important for us to be mindful about what are some toolkits and resources that we can perhaps have so that we can act with more kindness, more effectiveness as well, but more understanding as we work and build space together. And so the question I also am curious to think about is, can you build trust with somebody you've only seen online? Because we're now at that stage that we probably have to. And I'm curious to hear if this is how you feel too. But in traditional networking and relationship building setting, 100% people say face-to-face meetings are essential for long-term business and friends relationship. And I would agree too. Meeting people in person is really important. And while a lot of us sometimes can benefit from remote working, there's an aspect of something that is invaluable when you meet people in person. In fact, 72% of people generally say, their first impressions are impacted by how somebody appears the first time they meet, right? First time impression, as well as the handshake. 85% of the jobs right now are usually filled by networking, and a large percentage, 99 out of 10 people, prefer small meetings to communicate. So what this means in an online setting is it brings us the picture of, okay, how would you feel that you're connected to someone and feel validated and appreciated when you can't shake their hand, right? Or when you're meeting them and just talking with them in person online. A lot of that is going to be boiled down to the way things are communicated and the way you consistently build those relationships through communication. So let's take a moment to take a step back and reflect on the past just 2 days, 2 business days, and how you were communicating with one another and how you felt you were working with your team. Earlier today, if you were doing any weekly team meetings, was there a chance for you to at least have a sit down and just have a conversation and say, hey, how are we all doing right now? While we keep in mind the rudiments of the things that we appreciated when we did in person, such as how we build trust, how we collaborate, where empathy, kindness, and thoughtfulness was critical. I asked for you to take a moment to think about how it's going to be communicated online. And so one tool that I asked for us to think about, right? Like, I know it's tempting for us to just think about what if, what if, what if, but instead of what if, the other thing is thinking about empathy. What must be going on in this person when they're receiving this email? What might be going on when they receive this text message? How am I wording this so that I'm being sensitive to where they are and what they might be thinking? I know some of us are oversaturated with information, frankly, and I'm being intentional about not saying the word to give yourself a little break. And it's hard for us to be in the balance of how do we say in respect. So one tool that I hope to add to your toolkit is this. I noticed, I wonder. This simple phrase I find very powerful, whether it's relationship building online, networking online, even with people you have never met. When we take a moment to communicate, instead of saying, I think, I will, depending on the culture and where it is, it could be very individualistic. It could come across the wrong way. But when we phrase it and think like this, I noticed, I wonder, we're opening the door of conversation. And in a way, I think when we are in that trust building conversation, it almost feels like this. This is a quote, actually, I made this into a little postcard way back when I started InnovatorsBox because I love this quote. This is from David White, poet. Some of the Starting Block friends, another network of mine might know this, but a real conversation always contains an invitation. You are inviting another person to reveal herself or himself to you, to tell you who they are and what they want. I ask for us to all take a moment and, whether it's relationships for business, personal, even with friends, even with family members, how are we being intentional about having a real conversation and creating space for that? So today's tools are those, how do we think about having a real conversation and connecting? And if you feel like you don't have that right now, that's okay. This is going to be a good practice. Just think about this is going to push all of us to build this new toolkit. We are going to be so much wiser in how we communicate and build friendships online. And I think that's fantastic because frankly, there's way too many miscommunications. We undermine how we say things. I think it's so easy to just say whatever's on our mind. And there's a lot of science to why we tend to see a lot of negative, at times, conversations. And so, take a moment to think about what can I do better to say I noticed and I wonder. And I leave with you today with another quote to keep into perspective. And that is... I have it right here. Brené Brown. I know some of us were fans of Brené Brown. I have a book here. I would love to interview Brené Brown one day. I have it right here that I put it aside. But courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen. I asked for us how we can do that online as much as offline and be more thoughtful in everything we communicate and build. Alan Collins, this is pulling a good network together takes effort, sincerity, and time. This is still going to be true online. And especially more so because we're not going to see the body language. We might on the video set like this, but let's admit it, this is only half of the true story of what people are going to be going through. And so every time you feel like, I'm not really sure if I felt like the connectedness in that messaging or that video call, let's just take a step back and think about perhaps is there an opportunity that I can help do something different? Or can I just step back before I make that my first impression? And so I hope this was an opportunity for us to take a step back and pause. One thing, if you have not noticed, I'm very excited to continue this story. So first, thank you all for the encouragement. And so to help you share positivity and my goal of giving back, my intention is to do these live shows 3 times a week. I'm going to be now inviting friends this week, and so she's going to share real practical tips you can use right now for yourself, your family, and friends on how to manage stress and anxiety, because I know we all go through it. I'm going to talk about how community managers can manage well, and perhaps how we can manage our team well. So there's other topics coming up, but for now, stay safe, be happy, and let's take all the courage to think about how we build those relationships online and offline. And so thank you all very much. Be safe and happy, and I'll see you soon again. Let your comments down below.